Okay, we'll get started with our event this afternoon, folks.
They're doing.
So good afternoon, everyone. You're very welcome to Fiaich Institute for our inaugural Women in STEM event taking place as part of Science Week 2025. So today's event is about visibility, opportunity, and inspiration. We know from the 2024 IWISH report that women currently make up 25% of the STEM workforce in Ireland. And here in Fiaich Institute, we see the same pattern reflected in our courses. Only 23% of our computer science students are female, and just 10% of our engineering students are female. So these young women are doing brilliantly, but they're doing so in a classroom where they often are a minority. So events like today are very important. They help highlight the role or highlight real role models like we have here with us today, real careers and real pathways where women belong and lead. We're also delighted to be joined by our virtual audience of secondary schools across the Northeast, and also our fantastic live audience, which consists of learners from our School of Engineering, our School of Science, our School of Business, and our School of Pre-University Learners, and more. You are all very welcome here today. For those of you on our live audience, if you can just ensure that you are on mute, just to ensure that the event goes smoothly. Before I begin, I'd like to introduce the host of today's discussion. Naomi O'Donoghue is the Head of Sales and Business Development in Dundalk Credit Union. Since joining in 2024, Naomi has led the credit union's work on sustainability, including the establishment of the Sustainable Energy Community and a number of innovative green events and initiatives. Naomi has been a strong advocate for women in STEM, developing partnerships with DKIT, championing female participation in national women STEM events, and most recently launching a third-level scholarship for female STEM student at DKIT. And we will meet Grace Marron, who is sitting at the side of the stage, the recipient of that scholarship later on in the event. For Dundalk Credit Union, supporting young people and widening participation in education is a core priority, and Naomi has been central in bringing this to life. So with that, it is my pleasure to hand over to our host, Naomi O'Donoghue.
Thank you very much. Do you think it's low enough for me? Oh, can we hear me, yeah? Yeah, you gotta be strong, Connor. Okay, thank you very much. I am honoured to be here to present today's podcast. My name is Naomi O'Donoghue, and while I'm not a woman in STEM, I have found myself in a role in Dundalk Credit Union where I'm heavily involved in driving the credit union's sustainability initiatives, which I love. And as a result, I find so much of what I do lately surrounds sustainability, environmental, climate action, and space. So before I introduce our brilliant panel, I wanted to tell you why I'm particularly interested to be here. Because I think if I had been sat in this audience at age 16 or 17, my career might have taken a completely different path. In school, I excelled at maths, economics, physics, anything that was problem solving or logic based. At no point in my school years did anyone ever suggest a career in engineering. Despite getting an A in honours maths at Leaving Cert, at no point did my parents, any guidance teacher, or anyone ever suggest that maybe a career in maths was for me. Now, I was asked if I'd like to be a nurse, which I had no interest in. And I'm not unhappy about how my career has gone. I have a job which I really love, and I do have a job that's well paid. But I do want to tell you this. My husband is a man who failed his Leaving Cert, and the second time round, just about scraped 300 points. He's possibly the worst speller that I know, and he now works a very nice job as an automation engineer in pharmaceutical, and he easily earns twice my salary. So every now and again, I wonder, maybe a career in STEM would have been better suited to me. So I'm very keen to get to know these four ladies on stage and to find out about their careers and their varied lines of work. So I'd like to introduce our amazing panel. And to my right here, first we have Maryellen Kelledy. Maryellen is a graduate of DKIT and UCD and wears many, many hats. She is currently the Chief of Staff for Overhaul, a supply chain management technology solutions company. She is the chairperson of Engineers Ireland Northeast Region, a member of the Chartered Institute of Procurement and Supply, a member of the Chartered Institute of Logistics and Transport. On top of that, she is also the Programme Director for the part-time Supply Chain Management Programme at DKIT. Maryellen, I have known you for 18 months and I had no idea that you did all of that. I thought you just worked in DKIT. In 2023, Maryellen was named as one of US Supply and Demand Chain Executive Magazine's Women in Supply Chain of the Year. More recently, she was named 2025 Workforce Innovator by the same publication. Will you please give Maryellen a round of applause worthy of that CV? Our second guest beside Maryellen is Dr. Orla Sherlock. Orla is a microbiology lecturer and outreach coordinator for the School of Health and Science at DKIT. She is passionate about widening access to STEM education and leads initiatives that connect school students with third-level education across the region through projects like the Germ Lab, DKIT Love STEM, Teddy Bear Hospital, and Science in a Box. She brings microbiology to life while giving students a hands-on experience of what studying science at third level is really like. As someone who has children myself, Orla, that sounds like a really interesting role. I'm really looking forward to hearing all about it. Can we get a nice round of applause for Orla, please? And next we have the lovely Kelsey Smith, who started her studies with a QQI level 5 in business. She then progressed to a Bachelor of Science degree in Biomedical Science and continued on to achieve a Master's of Science in Neuroscience from Trinity College Dublin. Kelsey has built a career that blends scientific insight with business strategy. She is now working as a lung cancer consulting analyst. In this role, she helps shape impactful solutions for leading pharmaceutical companies, and this means she is bridging the gap between research and real-world innovation. Can we give it up for Kelsey, please? And our fourth guest on the panel is Joan McCann. Joan is a children's STEM educator and the founder of the Code Lab. The Code Lab is a multi-award-winning provider of coding education for children aged 7 to 17. Her school programme makes coding fun, engaging and accessible for every student, while empowering the next generation of digital creators across Ireland. In 2025, Joan was recognised by multiple awarding bodies for her contribution to STEM. Please put your hands together for our panel. Okay, ladies, we're going to get into the questions, and I'm going to remind everyone that sitting in front of a room full of people watching you can be very nerve-wracking. So if any of us are nervous, just bear with us, okay? We'll loosen up a bit. Okay, so my first question is, what is one misconception people have about what you do? And Maryellen, I might start with you.
Thank you, Naomi, and thank you to everyone. It's great to be here today. One misconception is that I work on my own and that it's super technical. And that was always something that came up. When you mentioned the word engineer, people think you're working off in a lab somewhere with large machinery all on your own. And it couldn't be more different. Engineering is all about innovation and the future. I work with multiple different teams across different stakeholders. So it can be teams with finance, HR, business, marketing, sales. So it's very social in terms of your people skills and who you're going to connect with.
And Kelsey, what about you? Would there be misconceptions in what you do?
Yeah, so I obviously work in the life science consulting industry. So that often gets misconstrued with being a well-established and experienced consultant in the healthcare industry, which is a doctor. I'm not that. I have a very kind of niche job, I think. I analyze data, as you so kindly introduced me, Naomi, but I analyze data to make strategic business decisions. So I kind of found the overlap between science and business in this type of career.
And I'm going to just check before we move on to the next questions. When we're moving our heads, is the mics picking us up okay? Are we good? Yeah, just that we don't go on needlessly not having anyone hear us. Okay. So Orla, what reaction do people have when you tell them what you do? Because you're a doctor and I find that really scary when I meet these people with their PhDs.
Yeah, so I guess depends on how I'm introduced. So if somebody says, what do you do? And I say I'm a microbiologist, I'm generally met with a wall of silence, slightly glazed eyes, and it ends up with, oh, good, yeah. Alternatively, and maybe this is quite common, if I'm introduced as Dr. Orla Sherlock, as your PhD entitles you to be, I often get a full medical history from people. They might even show me a funny rash. And then we're both really embarrassed when I say, I'm actually not that sort of a doctor. And when we laugh and get over that part, and that's happened regularly, if I get the opportunity to explain that I'm the outreach coordinator for DKIT, which means I come to schools and I do talks like this and I bring you into DKIT and I do science experiments with you, and I get an opportunity to really explain what microbiologists do, that's when the magic kind of happens, because people start to say, oh, it's not just bad germs and it's not just making you sick. It is a whole other plethora of interesting things. And I get a lot of, oh, wow, and I didn't realize and I didn't know that. And that's when it's really enjoyable.
Yeah. And Kelsey, when I introduced you, you're working as a lung cancer consulting analyst. So what reaction do people have to that? Because when I read that, I thought, oh.
Yeah, so everyone seems to be pretty shocked and kind of doesn't fully understand what it is. People tend to misconstrue it as a doctor in lung cancer, and I often, same as yourself, get a whole load of history and medical questions. But I mainly, one funny story that has happened to me recently is when I first started my career, my nana never fully, she's 90 years old now, but she never fully understood what I did. One day we were in the GP office and we were sitting in the waiting room, and the nurse pops out and is like, oh, it'll be a few minutes till the doctor's here. And my nana turns around and she's like, oh, sure, my granddaughter here's a doctor too. And we both kind of just looked at each other. I was sitting there with my iced oat latte in hand, full tracksuit on, like, I am most definitely not a doctor. Don't take any advice from me. But yeah, so it definitely is a common misconstrue with them, because I feel like I have a quite niche job. It's not very common in Ireland. It definitely is a growing industry, but it's a quite niche job. So there's a lot of shock and confusion when I first say what I am.
Okay, and I'll keep with you for a second, because you did your PLC and a lot of you will have similar, you will have studied a degree and then a master's and a PhD. And I think no matter what you study at third level, you need to have people rooting for you. So my question is, and Kelsey, Joan, maybe you'll be able to answer it. Joan, I'd love to bring you in actually. Who was your biggest cheerleader when you were starting off in your studies and then in your career?
Okay, well, I started off, I was in St. Vincent's here in Dundalk. I wanted to do either computer science or electronic engineering. I wasn't put off it by my parents, which I think a lot of other girls either didn't see it as an option or were put off that, and possibly by career guidance at the time as well. But when I look back, I did go for computer science. I changed my mind to the last CAO, changed my mind in July, and dropped the electronic engineering aspirations. So, and then I went off to DIT at the time, which is TU Dublin, and then had a career in computer science. And the biggest impact really was for me at the start. So my parents encouraged me to go for that. They didn't steer me towards it. They just asked what I was interested in and didn't put me off. And I think that's the most important thing, is that when somebody has an aspiration to do something, encourage them into it. And I see that now that I'm an educator. I work a lot with primary school children, and I see, I run courses and parents send their kids to them. And, the parents who send their kids to open their minds to computer science, to coding, to something creative, they're encouraging them to try that out. And maybe they'll become coders and maybe they won't. But I do think an awful lot of that comes from parents.
Yeah, definitely. And not all of us will have parents that think this is right for us.
Yeah.
And I think if there's any girls that are thinking of studying it, I think parents always have your best interest at heart, but sometimes we think we know best when really we need to allow you guys to figure it out yourself as well. Kelsey, I would have had people in my career that would have been very much just go for it. You'll be well fit for that. Did you have any support like that in your career when you were starting out, particularly when you were younger?
Yeah, so I think same as Joan, my parents definitely supported me the whole way through. They always supported me to make my own decisions and follow what I was interested in. And I think as I developed, I also was thinking about a career in business. I did a 1-year level 5 degree in business, and then I changed completely and went into STEM. So they supported me through all of that, always letting me flourish and find my own interests. And
very good. Okay, so Maryellen, do you think the STEM industry has evolved since you first joined the field?
Yeah, so I'm going to admit I've been in industry for about 20 years, which is quite scary at this point. It is constantly changing and evolving. When I started out, I was excited to have actual good Wi-Fi or internet connection.
You're really old.
Really old, I know. I remember dial-up.
I don't know what I'm saying. I also remember dial-up.
So maybe some of the mums and dads out there, guardians, will know what that is. But we're at a point now, we didn't have the Internet of Things or cloud computing, and everything's evolving. Every couple of years, there's jobs that are going to come along that don't even exist now, but they'll be out there when you guys are looking for your roles. And the best thing about being an engineer is that you have a good solid base that you can adapt to those roles and find your passion within such a wide and open industry.
And do we think all of this advancement and progress is all good progress?
So that's a really good question. There is, in terms of sustainability, you'll see come through, because people are asking about how can we be more sustainable for the future. Like anything, there's going to be a little bit of trial and error. I'm sure there's loads of talk about using ChatGPT and kind of other AI sources out there. We have to find what the right balance is, but that's something that's evolving constantly. And you guys are part of that. You're making history as we go.
Yeah. So when I was doing the introductions and as we're speaking to you, you're all, and I know from speaking to you beforehand, you're all quite passionate about your jobs. And I suppose like Orla, you will have quite had a varied career. Are there career highlights that you could share with us that might give us some insight or inspiration into what you do?
Yeah, so I've been really lucky that I've had quite a varied and exciting career as a scientist. It goes full circle. It started at DKIT and it ends at DKIT, so bear with me. So I started out as a level 6 student in biology in DKIT with a very average leaving cert and no real idea what I wanted to do. I came to Dundalk for this level 6 2-year program. I didn't do that well because I had a very good social life while I was here. My mentors in the college were really important because at the end of 2 years, while I hadn't failed, I probably wasn't far off. They advised that I take a year out, reconsider my career and maybe grow up a little bit. And I took their advice and I went off and I got myself a job in a science lab in Drogheda in Tyrlan, which is the milk industry. That was a game changer because I realized I did actually like science, but I knew that my level 6 qualification probably wasn't going to be enough to get me on the career path that I wanted. So I came back to college in Dundalk again, with my tail between my legs slightly. But this time I worked and I studied and I did well. I didn't love the program at DKIT. That was my level 7 degree. And I said, I'll go on and I'll do level 8. So I went to SETU in Carlow and I finished my program there. And that again was a bit of a game changer because my mentors who were my lecturers and there said, you have a bit of a knack for research. Would you consider continuing and doing some research? So that's where the PhD comes in and that's where you get your doctor title. So you do a 4-year research project in science and that qualifies you with your doctorate. From there, my highlights kind of emerged. I got a job in the United States Naval Research Bases in Washington, D.C. And that was working alongside, you know, the top brains in the US, working in the Navy, qualified naval officers, military personnel, working on projects with them. And I had come from, you know, a low program starting out. So I did pinch myself on days when they were in their beautiful white uniforms, looking gorgeous. And I really enjoyed my role there. I can't tell you what I worked on. Obviously, that's very secretive, but it was really interesting. From there, then just as a little bit of variety, I came back and I took a break from research and I went into sales and I was on the road in Ireland and I was in every county and every hospital and every lab in Ireland. It was a brilliant way to see what science looks like in Ireland. And a highlight was I ended up working on maternity wards, which I never knew was possible as a scientist. And I was training the nurses as they were taking babies from mothers. And they were taking blood from the baby's heads and I was training them how to analyse that blood. And I absolutely loved it. I was listening to babies being born all day. And it was a really privileged thing to do. I left sales because I didn't really have a business head. I realised I'm still a bit of a scientist. And I went back to research, but I went to Copenhagen and I researched infections in Denmark for 2 years. That led to an opportunity in Australia where I used to sail up this beautiful river in Brisbane to Brisbane University, and I worked in research there. And again, these were all just opportunities that arose one to the next. I had no idea my path was going to twist and turn like it has. I finally came back to Ireland and I'm nearly finished and I'm nearly back in DKIT. And I got a job in Beaumont Hospital and the Royal College of Surgeons. And I absolutely loved that. It was something called translational research. And it meant when I did an experiment in the lab as a scientist, I affected how that patient was treated that day. I nearly felt like you were medical, and I absolutely loved it. I got an opportunity to lecture there. So I was lecturing huge rooms, maybe twice the size of this, so it was the medical students and the pharmacy students. That was quite daunting, that these were training to be, you know, GPs and that I was lecturing them. But it gave me great experience. What I realized there was I wanted to work with people individually. I wanted small class sizes. I wanted to get to know my students and mentor them maybe like I was. So I looked for a job with much smaller class sizes, and that's where DKIT has a fabulous advantage. We all have very small class sizes of about 20 in my lab and 40 in my lecture. So I know all of my students quite personally. It means you can really bring them on, watch their careers and get the joy of that. I really am passionate about engaging with my students and watching them progress, helping them when they're struggling personally or, you know, academically, and bringing them forward. So I suppose it's been loads of highlights. I'm sorry I've talked too long, but that's what I've enjoyed.
Maryellen, in the kitchen beforehand, we were laughing because you had notes written on a post-it on the back of your phone. She certainly hadn't all of that written on the post-it. Joan, I think when you're not involved in science, for me, science just feels so broad, and it's very hard to associate like a subject with what you'll go on and do in your career. So will you remind me what you studied and then the different industries or the different things that has led you to in your career as a result?
Okay, so I studied computer science and software engineering in what is now TU Dublin. I was an average student as well. I also had a great social life, but yeah, I really enjoyed it. And then I was very lucky to be picked up by IBM on their round through the colleges, and I started to work in IBM. And I got a lot of formal training in presenting, in working with customers. So a lot of extra business type of training on top of that. And they were very much of the belief. I did go into their software department, and they were very huge believers in, if you're going to be coding, you need to go and actually do all of the other things as well in the software life cycle. So if you're going to become a coder, you're going to become a tester first of what the coding department produce. And it was a huge lesson actually, because when you do testing for a few months, then when you become a developer, you're a lot more conscious of the work you do. You make sure it's good, you make sure it works, because you know you've done the job that the next person in the chain has to do. So I worked as a coder. I wasn't particularly strong. I know I teach kids coding now. I wasn't a very good coder. I found it quite difficult, but that was just me. There were other people who had done my course were really good at it. And I moved on into, I had more of a mind for systems design and analysis. So shaping what the developers would actually build. I worked in that for a good while, and then I got opportunities in that role to travel to our international customers. And that was, at the time I didn't realize it, but that was a game changer for me. So I realized that I was very good with customer facing roles. I went out, so I settled into a role there for a while, where if it was insurance software, if an insurance company in the States wanted to buy our software, I would go over and talk to them about what they thought they needed versus, you know, what they actually needed, how it was going to work for them, and then brought all of that back and translated it back into the type of language that the coders would need. So it wasn't a very technical role at all compared to where I had come from. Then I moved even further back in the process and worked with the pre-sales teams. So I got exposure to sales and pre-sales and how that works. Still keeping in touch with the software side. And then I moved to another insurance software company and did very similar roles. I traveled to Thailand, I traveled to Canada, the States, and Europe. Got huge opportunities. But the big thing for me to let you all know is that it wasn't techie. So I loved computer science. I loved how software was built. I understood that whole concept, but I wasn't very good at actually creating it, or, you know, sitting down and writing the code and having it work. But there was exposure to so many other parts of a business through that one role that I had.
You know, I think it's interesting listening to a few of you speak. No matter really what you study in the start of your career, what I found in my career, I studied accounting and I'm in business development now. You always end up back in where you're most comfortable. Like you find your niche and you find the thing that you're best at after a bit of trial and error. And hopefully you have the confidence to put yourself out there for the different things so that you find that. Kelsey, so my question then for you, after completing your PLC in business, what inspired you then to go on to a career in STEM?
So, first of all, it starts with me in secondary school. So I think back then I knew and I was given the advice of if I did a business degree, that would be open so many doors to me for me, and I would have a lot of opportunities for jobs after a business degree. So I was never really fully told what it would look like to finish a science degree and what jobs could be availed to me when I finished. So I kind of just chose business because I knew it was a safe option. I knew I was guaranteed multiple different job opportunities and it was a broad degree. So I started off with the level 5 QQI in business in Dunboyne. Then I decided to go into science because I knew if I was going to do a 4-year degree, I had to be very interested and love what I did. And I found that I always went back to learning about the human body, trying to understand the brain. I always wanted to understand further, and I found that I was reading books and podcasts, and this was something that I always kind of went back to. Even though I tried my best to move into business, I knew that I was always going back to the science industry and biology. As you said, you always end up going back to your interests. But I then took the risk kind of when I first started that degree, because I didn't really know where my career was going to go. I didn't know what job opportunities I could get, because I knew I didn't want to work in a lab. Like that was like the only opportunity that was fed to me when I was doing my business degree, was that I potentially would be working in a lab. And I felt like that wasn't somewhere I felt fully comfortable being. Like that was only the job that I could do. So I took a risk and I ended up in biomedical science, which is kind of a broader degree. And I knew that would give me kind of more options after if I did potentially want to do further study. I then went into my master's in neuroscience in Trinity, and still at that stage didn't know what I was going to do with my career. It was actually a friend from the US who had told me about the consulting industry and had basically said there is a place and a career path that you could take that overlaps that interest in business that I had originally with the healthcare industry and with science. So I ended up molding my degrees together with the QQI level 5 and the bachelor's and the master's to create this kind of formatted like experience to be able to get into this type of job.
Amazing. Okay, at the start, when I was making my introduction, I said I was very good at maths. And I think this is something that people are cautious about. So Maryellen, do you have to be good at maths to be an engineer, to pursue a career in STEM?
So I'm going to apologise to all the maths teachers out there now ahead of this. I was your average student. I had to work, do my homework. Probably parents were fighting with me a bit to get stuff done. It was so wide and varied. I didn't see the point in what I was doing in some cases. But when I went into college, it clicked because it was hands-on. I was doing things in the lab where I would have a circuit and I was measuring voltage, and then I would do the calculations and I could see why I was doing it and what the purpose was. And that really helped me understand. So the applicable part in college and the hands-on piece really did provide a benefit.
I mentioned my poor husband. He'd be mortified if he knew I always mentioned him. But the reason he failed his even cert was because he failed maths. And when he went to DKIT and he was studying electronic engineering, maths just clicked for him.
Yeah.
And it just was totally different. It was something he just got because he understood why he was being taught it as well.
Yeah. And you hear that story so many times.
Okay. And so at the start, we heard about the stats on women in STEM. And I think there's been a huge amount of progress in terms of how women are represented and the opportunities that are there. But there surely were challenges throughout some of your careers or throughout your studies. So I wonder, Orla, did you encounter any challenges as a career in STEM? And if you didn't, well, all the better. We'd love to hear it.
I think science is represented well by women. According to Irish stats last year, about 60% of girls will take biology, for example. So in my career, I've been really lucky and I'm really grateful that I haven't experienced being female as a barrier in science at all. There are barriers to progression in STEM as a woman, and perhaps it's trying to, get a little bit of career life balance. You're trying to be the scientist, the researcher, the lecturer, and now outreach and whatever other roles you take on. And it's just trying to find that little bit of balance. But I haven't met any opposition just because I'm female. So I do appreciate that's not everyone's experience, but it has been mine.
It's funny that you say that, because when I was reading Maryellen's introduction about wearing the many hats, I thought women who excel in their careers are generally women who take on more and more and more, and they do more and more. And we we go for things and we put it, and it can be hard. Work-life balance can be hard, but sometimes you feel like you have to put yourself out there that little bit more.
Yeah.
Kelsey, what about you? Did you have any, what about even studying in your masters? Would that have been well represented between men and women, or any challenges for you?
Yeah, so I'd say about 30% of my class was women. So I feel like in education, I didn't really see that underrepresentation as much as I see it in my career now.
Okay.
So like oftentimes I'm walking into conference halls or meetings and I'm like one of very few women in the room. And I also kind of experienced that imposter syndrome as well, where I feel like maybe I'm not meant to be here. I'm quite early in my career. Do I have the experience? Am I meant to be in this room? But you always got to remember that there's a reason why you're there, and you put yourself forward and you have to hold your own and be confident in yourself that you know what you're doing. So I think underrepresentation can be very daunting and scary, but there's a reason why you're there, and you're representing all women in STEM when you're in that room and you made it to that room.
And Joan, was yours experience similar then, or?
Yeah, so I was kind of half put off doing computer science by a career guidance man back in the 90s now, so that things have changed a lot, but I decided I don't care, I'm going for it anyway. But there were 10 girls and 80 guys in my course. I never felt, I look back now and I think, wow, how did I do that? But I never really felt that there was any difference. In IBM was never treated any differently. The only thing I did find was when I had my kids and I wanted to go back part-time, that just wasn't available. And I ended up taking a career break that I never in my wildest dreams thought I would do. And it became a very long one. So I took a huge career break out of the software industry. And then when I looked at going back in and get myself back into work, I had spent so long with my own kids. I'd worked with Coder Dojo, and I had seen the lack of girls. It was all young boys that were being brought along by their parents, and the odd girl was being brought along. These are primary school age kids. And that was where I thought, right, I need to do something about it. So I started the Code Lab and the Girls Initiative in it to encourage really their parents, because it's not young girls, 8, 9, 10, 11, who decide to go to a coding camp. It's their parents who decide to put them into it, to try and break that stereotype and show them this is really fun, this is really creative, it's really positive. It's something girls are really, really good at, to try and just, increase that balance. And I know it has come up to, in computer science, I think it's about 20% female now, but that's still way too low. And something I say to the young girls, and I'd say to all, well, the guys and the girls here, like, you know, when your grandparents were young, mainly the men used all the technology. They went out and they had the hands-on jobs, and the women stayed at home. But now you all have devices, you all have phones, you all use them in the same way for what you like. Why shouldn't you be involved in shaping technology for the future so that it works for you, whatever it is, you know, so that the men of the future aren't shaping the technology that the women are going to use. And that's kind of where I really have put my time in the last while.
I'm going to make a statement to all of you now based on something that you've said. Okay, so in the future, or if any of you have children, or your wife, your partner has a child, I don't think any woman has a child and doesn't think before she goes back to work, oh my God, everything will have changed while I was off. They'll all be better than me. I won't be able to do it. I'm not going to be able to fit back in. They won't need me. Everything worked grand when I wasn't there, and I'm superfluous. And I think every woman goes through that. So if you ever reach a point in your life where you've had a child and you're going back to work, or your partner is, you'll absolutely go back in there and you'll be nailing it by day 2. And they did need you. They just kept swimming while you weren't there. But I think it's really important, because we all experience it. But you went back, you set up your own thing, and we all get back in. And it's just one of the challenges that we deal with.
Yeah.
So ladies, we're already at my last question, but I want to give this one a bit of time, and I'd like each of you to answer it. So what is one piece of advice you would give to our audience in the room and watching about pursuing a career in STEM if they think it might be for them?
So I'll take this one first. Just say yes to any opportunity that comes. I did my undergraduate at DKIT in product design, engineering and electronics. And we were applying for everything at the time. So we were applying to do our masters. The whole class basically wanted to go to Dublin together. And I was also applying for a graduate program that took you to the Far East at the time. And I got a call and they said, do you want to come for an interview? And I said, okay, this will be my first job interview. Put the suit on and away you go. And I got a call back a couple of days later saying, you've got a place on the graduate program if you want to go to mainland China in a couple of weeks. And I was going, right, okay. My parents are going to be delighted because I've got a job. so they're going to be happy. But how am I going to tell my friends and my class, and is this something I want to do? And I just said, what's the worst thing that can happen? If I really don't like it, I can come home. So just go with any opportunity that comes up for you. You'll find your way.
It's good advice. What about you, Orla?
I think Mary kind of robbed my answer. She took my post-it.
Spent a lot of time together.
So I think there's a really common misconception in science that you need to be very intelligent and you need high points. Whereas what you actually need to pursue a career in STEM is follow the subject that you like. Don't worry about the career path when you're entering the course. Just say, I like this topic, I'm interested in this topic, and this is something I'll work with. And your career takes shape after that, sort of automatically, it will come up in front of you. Equally say yes to every opportunity, put yourself out of your comfort zone. This is way out of mine. And say yes, because you do get something from these yeses and from these experiences, and enjoy the twists, the turns. The pathway's never straight. You're forward and back, you succeed, you fail, and it's just keep going and enjoy it as that happens.
Thank you very much. Kelsey, what about you?
Yeah, so I think mainly when I was starting my career, the whole reason why I didn't really choose science in the first get-go was because I didn't fully understand the career path that I could have after it. So I just want to let everyone know there's so much you can do after a degree with STEM. It has so many skills like problem solving, critical thinking, so many different skills that you can adapt to so many different careers. So I just want to say a STEM degree.
Brilliant. And Orla. Sorry, Joan.
Well, there's nothing left really. Stephen took my problem solving. I had that in the bag. Yeah, I would say I have two boys who are doing the Leaving Cert. So they're at the stage of, oh my God, what am I going to do? What am I going to pick? I have to pick a course for college and it has to have a good career path. I just, look, I did a eeny, meeny, miny, mo between the two courses that I was going to go for. I could have gone for the other one. It wouldn't have really made any difference. And I know a lot of people are like, well, no, do you earn a lot of money doing that? I hear that all the time at home. Well, am I going to earn money doing that? No matter what you do, no matter how good your course is, or if it suits you or doesn't suit you, you will only earn money and do well based on your skills and your personality. It's the person who gets promoted. It's the person who takes the opportunities and who tries out different things and puts themselves outside of their comfort zone. And I keep saying that to them, there's people who did my course, who did really well. There's people who, settled into doing very different kind of jobs to me. So there's opportunities available no matter what course you do. But I absolutely would encourage people to take more, to go towards STEM, because with AI, and I know we haven't really mentioned it, but AI is, it's growing faster than even the people who created it or started creating it in the beginning could even imagine. And you probably won't need to code. If somebody does computer science, they won't have to code it themselves, but they will have to understand how it works. And in any career that you take, you are going to end up using technology and using AI. So having an understanding, and it's just having a STEM mind, really. You don't have to do computer science to understand it. You will need to understand how it works to progress and further yourselves in your career. So.
Well, that was brilliant. Ladies, thank you so much for all of the insight. I really enjoyed it. I hope all the students took something from it. It was great to hear about all of your different roles and how your careers have progressed. And it's not always a linear line for all of us. So we are coming to the end of the session. But before we finish up, I'm going to introduce Grace Marron. Grace is a third level engineering student in DKIT. And as I mentioned, last year we set up a Women in STEM scholarship, and Grace was the first recipient of that award. Grace has questions for both our virtual audience and our in-person audience, and she has prizes for both. So Grace, I'm going to let you take that away.
Hello. Hello, everybody. I'm Grace Marron, as Naomi said, and I have two questions here. So one for the virtual audience. The winner will be contacted after the event, and you can send your answer to Jenny Gray at igray@ofi@imetb.ie. So I just, yeah.
I think you're being trolled.
Yeah. I think it's fine.
I think, right.
Yeah. Okay, so the question for the virtual audience is, who was the first woman to win a Nobel Prize? And you can send your answer to Jenny Gray and you'll be contacted if you are the winner. And the second question is for the live audience and it'll show who was listening at the start. So what percentage of women make up the STEM workforce? I don't know who's going to pick them.
You want to pick someone with a hand up?
Yeah, well, this girl here. 23? No, nearly there though. Yeah, over here. Or yeah, that's perfect. You can come up here and you get your prize.
Grace, I think you maybe could remind that virtual study. Yeah,
With the bell. Yeah, and just for the virtual audience again, the question was, who was the first woman to win a Nobel Prize for Science? And you can send your answer to Jenny Gray at igray.ofi@imetb.ie.
Lovely. Okay, so just before we close the event and before we get back to class, if I can just fix this mic. I just want to sincerely thank all of our guest speakers. We very much appreciate you all coming in today. It was a fantastic event. Very inspiring listening to all of your career paths. I only wish I could go back and go into a career in STEM myself. Very jealous. So I suppose, and thanks as well, sorry, for our key speaker, Naomi O'Donoghue, as well, for leading the conversation today. I suppose the key message today is that there is a place for women in STEM and the pathways are open and that they are achievable. And as Ellen May and the rest of the panel said, say yes, take the opportunity, jump at it, and you never know what may happen. To all of our learners here and online, if today has sparked an interest or a question, follow it. Speak to us, ask for guidance, and take the next step. I want to thank, before I finish off, I want to thank everyone involved in organising the event today. This is our first podcast event in Fiaich Institute, and we're delighted to host it, and hopefully we will have similar events throughout the year and for next year's group. I want to thank sincerely Jennifer Gray, our guidance counsellor, and Tiernan Dowdall, our coordinator of our pre-university science, who put a huge amount of work into organising this event. I also want to thank Damien Kenny and Daniel McDermott at the front here for organising our IT setup and ensuring everything went very smoothly. So thanks, lads. Okay, and a final thanks and round of applause for our guest speakers here this evening. Thanks to all of our learners and all of our live and online audience as well. Thanks to all of our feeder schools for tuning in and for your engagement today. I want to wish you all the best for the rest of the week, and I hope you enjoy Science Week. Thank you very much.